I wasn't the fastest car on track. It wasn't the safest strategy either. But after 3 hours, one risky decision changed everything. And rewarded me with a place on the podium. For this 3-hour endurance race, I decided to drive the Audi, a car that almost nobody else chose. I liked taking on a challenge, and I knew it wasn't the fastest car around Bathurst. Because of that, I could only qualify in 13th place. Since this is a 3-hour endurance race, everyone is careful at the start. We all know that you can't win the race in the first lap, especially not in the very first corner. So everyone gives each other space and tries to avoid any unnecessary contact. Coming to the end of the opening lap, I got a great exit onto the straight and tucked into the slipstream of the car ahead. When I saw the Ferrari brake much earlier than I expected, I committed to the overtake and made up another position. At the end of lap 3, one small mistake from the driver ahead turned into a massive incident. He spun across the track, collecting several innocent cars and causing complete chaos. Fortunately, I managed to avoid all the chaos ahead. As a result, I climbed from P13 to P8 in just 3 laps. For the next 13 laps, the race settled down. There were no major incidents, and I stayed tucked in behind the Spaniard's Ferrari, using the slipstream and saving fuel, until this happened. P2 received a bump draft from P3 and went for an ambitious move around the outside of the leader. Unfortunately, that's the dirtiest part of the track, with almost no grip, and this was the result. Fortunately, I managed to avoid the chaos ahead, and I think my endurance racing experience played a big part in that. Whenever my spotter calls out an incident ahead and I see the yellow flags, I immediately start slowing down. At that point, I'm already looking for the safest way through and trying to predict where the stranded cars will end up. This time, though, I had to come to a complete stop to avoid the wreck. On lap 21, just 9 laps before the first scheduled pit stop, the driver ahead made a mistake through the downhill section and hit the wall. Everything happened so quickly that I had nowhere to go. I tried to slow down as much as I could, but a small contact was unavoidable. The contact left me with front-end damage and reduced downforce. Instead of pitting immediately, I decided to carry on. Despite the damage, I was getting excellent exits onto the long straights, which meant the Mustang behind had no real opportunity to make a move before the pit stops. During the first round of pit stops, the Mustang team outsmarted me. They took on less fuel, which allowed them to leave the pits ahead of me. The second stint was very consistent. For almost an hour, the gap between us barely changed, staying at around 7 seconds until the second pit stop. I knew that if I wanted to fight for a better result, I had to try something different. But before that, there was one more code brown moment waiting for me.
Slow car ahead. Car stopped ahead. Go right.
Luckily, I escaped by just a few millimeters. It was extremely close, but I managed to get through it without any damage and continue the race. After settling comfortably into P4 and realizing I wasn't getting any closer to P3, I still kept telling myself, I want that podium position. And that's when a crazy idea came to my mind. What if I skipped a tire change during my final pit stop? I checked the tire wear and realized that my tires from the first stint were actually not in such bad condition. So the decision was made. I would only take fuel.
You should pit to refuel.
For my final pit stop, I came into the pits still 7 seconds behind P3. The gap hadn't changed, and this was the moment when my strategy gamble began. After completing my outlap, I checked the live timing and couldn't believe the numbers. I had saved 24 seconds in the pits and was now 19 seconds ahead of my main rival, the Mustang. While he was struggling to get his tires up to temperature, we completed the next lap at almost the same pace. He had brand new tires, while mine were old, but already warm. By lap 5 of the final stint, his fresh tires were finally up to temperature, and he started to close the gap. He was now gaining 0.5 to 0.8 seconds per lap, while I was fighting with the lack of grip from my worn tires. After the exit of turn 1, I made another small adjustment and moved the brake bias forward, trying to make the car easier to control. I knew he was going to close the gap lap by lap, but I also knew there was no reason to panic. There were 4 lapped cars between us, so I expected him to lose some time working his way through the traffic. My job was simple: stay calm, stay consistent, and hit my marks every single lap. But there was one more challenge I had to deal with.
I'm getting old. My knee hurts.
Yes, being a 35 sim racer isn't easy. 3 hours without a break is a real challenge. And then it was the final lap. The Mustang had closed the gap to just 9 seconds, but all I had to do now was bring the Audi home. I crossed the finish line believing I had finished in P3, but just seconds later, everything changed. Something completely unexpected happened to the car ahead, promoting me to P2.
Wow, second place? What the hell?
In the end, this wasn't a story about speed. It was a story about patience, consistency, racecraft, and one bold strategy call. Sometimes, that's all it takes to stand on the podium. So, if there's one thing you can take away from this race, it's this. Don't automatically assume that changing tires is always the best option in a GT3 endurance race. Take tire wear, track temperature, and your driving style into account. Under the right conditions, skipping the tire change can save around 25 seconds in the pits, and that can completely change the outcome of your race. Of course, it's always a gamble, but sometimes the biggest rewards come from the boldest strategy calls.